Hello everyone, Tactical Itch here. In patch 4.0, the Cathay army, thanks to all those DLC units, are able to do something that they were never able to do before, and that is a full-on melee rush. You can see that the Cathay army here, led by Alfredino, has no missile units at all, and yet, thanks to the Jet Lions, they are still able to enjoy some harmony buff, boosting the melee stats of Jade Lances and other melee units like the Peasant Long Spears as well. As for the army build here, we have a front line of Peasant Long Spears, and then in the skies, Righteous Lances of Weijing and 4 Onyx Crowmen, some very cost-effective aerial melee units who has some pretty good melee stats, and when buffed up by Harmony, they are basically flying elite infantry. One of them is the Empress Crowman, who has some devastating Nangao grenades. As for the mobility on the ground, we have a bunch of peasant horsemen on the flank here, and also the Jet Lions supported by the Jade Lances. 40 melee defense is very solid for a heavy cavalry, honestly. And then leading the army, we have Zhao Ming, the Iron Dragon, coming in with quite a few spells, including Plague of Rust, for that melee damage from the Jade Lancers to be more effective. Dragon's Breath for some area of effect damage, and then, of course, his healing item, which is somewhere around here. And yeah, the Burning Vambraces, providing a massive burst heal of 32% and 40% damage resistance. This is some ridiculous healing, honestly, and probably one of the more broken things that Cathay received in this patch. As for the opposite side, the Empire army played by yours truly, we have a front line of spearmen with shields, coupled with a couple great swords. And on the flanks there, we have some Empire Knights, 4 of them in total, and then at the back, a couple artillery units, great cannons, plus a single Sunmaker protected by a spearman with shields. This used to be my favorite combo against Cathay due to the fact that Sunmaker can easily outduel 2 to 3 Cathay artillery with the help of some great cannons. But unfortunately here, there is no artillery in sight, and this pick of a bunch of artillery units might put me in big trouble. For the spell department, we have a Grey Wizard coming in with Melkoffs and a couple debuffs. Leading the army, it is Boris Todbringer himself coming in with full load out. And that's it for army builds. Now let's get the battle started. As the start of battle, with the range advantage on my end, the Sunmaker and the Great Cannons are all gonna fire at the Cathay formations, but with only dirt cheap peasants, there are not really anything for the Sunmaker to hit, though I still have to try use up all its ammo and generate as much value as possible. So with the rocket bombarding the peasants, they're taking heavy casualties, but the Onyx Crowmen, being flying targets, are not that affected by the rockets from the Sunmaker. Instead, they will be pushing straight for my formations, given that I do not have any good anti-air fire. The Great Cannons are only good at targeting the Righteous Lances, while the Onyx Crowmen are rather spread out and are rather hard to hit with great cannonballs. At the back there, I'm even targeting the Jade Lances with the Sunmaker, and the Sunmaker, having decent accuracy, can actually do some pretty good damage against the heavy cavalry. Onyx Crowmans at the same time are moving fast towards my formation. I'm doing some damage against them with Boris interfering, but unfortunately my cannons are still silenced because the Jet Lions have closed in. This denies my artillery from doing any meaningful damage because all the projectiles they shoot out are reflected back towards them. They are not actually hitting that many of my artillery crew because of the accuracy issue, but still they are doing some good damage, and the fact that I can't actually use those missiles to damage my opponent's infantry means that all these artillery has been silenced. I either would be shooting at myself or I would not be shooting at all. No matter which one I choose, there's no winning for me. At the same time, the Empress Crowmen dropped all their Nangao grenades onto my poor state troops and of course the Sunmaker crew. While the state troops held on, the artillery crew took way too much damage and are routed off. There are some Empire Knights nearby hoping to re-secure the Sunmaker crew, but then the Crowmen of Cathay are dropping on top of my poor cavalry. Empire Knights being ground units, they cannot countercharge fires and are basically sitting ducks as the Crowmen swoop in. You can see how quick the Empire Knights are taking damage from all these Empress Crowmen. They don't even have Harmony buffing them and has already chewed through a lot of my Empire Knights HP, dropping them almost to wavering territory. On the far side there, my state troops trying to hold back all the peasant blobs, but not too successful right here. I'm trying to use the shadow magic as well, Penumbral Pendulum, doing massive damage against the peasant long spears, but with the blob of Onyx Crowmen, Jade Lances, and the Righteous Lances of Weijing, all of them being buffed up by Harmony, you can see that my Empire Knights are no match against these elite Cathay mobility. With Zhao Ming himself engaging in combat, there's just too much armor piercing for the Empire Knights to handle, and they will be backing out of this engagement. If we look at the Great Cannons, we can see that they did really minimal damage value because they either got blocked by the Missile Mirror, or because they are cannons, their aiming has been kind of off in Total War Warhammer 3. Another Missile Mirror silencing them, and the Cathay melee units should be able to swarm their position. At the back there, the Grey Wizard has been hunted down by Zhao Ming, so I need to grab Boris over to help out, but overall my formations have been scattered all over the place as my melee troops are no match against the hammer and anvil from Cathay. Basically, my infantry are scattered all over the battlefield, and the Cathay mobility has maintained dominance throughout the battle. The only thing that's really still standing is Boris Todbringer here. He has enough melee stats to outduel the Cathay Dragons, but the thing is that Iron Dragon here does have the ability to instant kill Cap himself, so all that damage accumulated might not be enough. The balance of power is already tipping against my favor, and that is quite accurate. A little bit of Dragon's Breath attack, blasting away the health of these Empire Knights and Great Swords. The Great Swords might be elites among state troops, but they are not invincible, and they are slowly but surely being whittled down by the overwhelming forces of Cathay. Among them, the Empress Crowman, who has been a deadly melee force throughout the entire game, getting 100 kills, and if we look at the damage value, over 1,400 gold. This is not only their melee stats, but also their bombardment against my expensive Sunmaker artillery. Now that they are also buffed up by Harmony from a nearby Jet Lion, they are basically a flying elite infantry with 48 melee attack and 47 melee defense. Don't forget there's also the Righteous Lances of Wei Jing, who does have a lot of armor piercing damage plus a solid charge bonus. All it takes is one single charge on the Great Swords and the Great Swords would be done for. The Great Swords are pushing up, trying to hack through the Onyx Crowman using their anti-infantry to their advantage here, but with all that Cathay resources piling onto a single Great Sword unit, even their elite state troop status is not going to help them too much. At the back there, Boris Todbringer surrounded by a lot of Cathayan troops. The healing from his Rune Fang does help him sustain in this combat, but surrounded by armor-piercing single entities, even Boris will be taking quite a bit of noticeable damage. However, Zhao Ming is indeed dropping low in health, not quite there to activate the Burning Vambraces just yet, though as soon as that item activates, the balance of power will pop further against my favor, so doing damage against Zhao Ming can actually be harmful for my entire army. There's one healthy Great Swords over chasing peasants, but they are now returning to the fray. I do doubt they would be any use in this kind of scenario here. All it takes were just some peasants to pin them down on one side, and then cycle charging from peasant horses, from Jet Lions, and the Jade Lancers who are buffed up by Harmony, and these Great Swords will eventually be whittled down. Another thing is that the flying bug still exists on the patch, so a lot of the Righteous Lancers spent a lot of time hanging in the sky before actually making contact with Boris. Anyways, this is where the battle diverged between the beta patch and the current patch. When we were still playing the game, Boris actually held out long enough, moved back onto his own Great Swords, continue fighting to a point where Zhao Ming took enough damage to trigger that burst heal, further increasing Cathay's balance of power and in the end triggering army losses. But this time Boris actually took enough damage to get routed. As a result, the army losses kicks in earlier, everything on the Empire side routes and give Cathay an earlier victory. GG to Alfredino, who is playing the Cathay player going by the name doing some pest control. I'll be skipping the damage value this time because this battle is recorded on the live patch while the game itself is played in the beta patch, which makes the damage value not exactly accurate. Still, most of the early game to mid game is basically the same, and you can see that the Grand Cathay melee rush army is indeed viable. Any attempts trying to counteract Grand Cathay with your own artillery will be easily thwarted by a spam of cavalry and crowmen. The combination of mobile Harmony from the Jet Lions and just a cheap but very cost-efficient Onyx Crowman flyer means that Cathay is no longer that slow and sluggish box faction. Instead, they also have the capability to conduct lightning strikes. Anyways, that's all for today. I hope you all enjoyed this battle, and if you want to see more Total Warhammer content, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Tactical Lich, signing out.